Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to go ahead and check out another of these brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaur series releases, as this time we get to complete our Tyrannosaur family with the Juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex. You can see the packaging looks really nice. I love the way that the T-Rex here, the young Rex, kind of leans in and kind of pops into the window area for the figure itself. Really cool packaging, absolutely gorgeous artwork right there of that Rex. And then when we turn it around, you can see the back sports that really nice image of the Juvenile Rex, as well as all sorts of information and the other figures that are in this wave, all of which we have reviewed now, except for the Guanlong and Dailong, which I will have reviews up as soon as possible of those as soon as they begin shipping. So let's go ahead, pop this out of the box, and check it out. So first of all, and as always, we have the tail assembly instructions for the Rex. Again, I've shown this off in pretty much every review so far when it comes to a Beasts of the Mesozoic figure. Definitely something that I always say you really need to pay attention to, and I really mean it. You don't want to damage your figure, so make sure you read this and pay attention to the instructions. We've also got the card, but just like with the U-Tyrannus, there was an issue with the cards. The cards did not print out correctly. We can get a really good look or a good idea here of how incredible that artwork is, but the cards did have a little bit of a problem, so David will be sending the replacement card over very soon. Again, I had the opportunity to either wait and hold out for the card itself to include in my package or just have it sent later. And since I am a little bit of an impatient human being at times, and again, David asked if I wanted to wait it out for the card themselves or just have the figures now and then the cards sent later. I said, send the cards later and I can check the figures out now. But you can see the artwork and everything looks incredible. And then on the back of the card, you can see we have a nice image here, some dino toy photography of the Juvenile Rex. And then you can see some information and everything down here. I absolutely love these collectible cards. Such a great addition to these figures. Then we've also got ourselves a base, and as you can see, the base is quite a bit smaller. Of course, since it's a Juvenile Rex, it's smaller than any one that we've seen so far in the Tyrannosaur series, because all of the other Tyrannosaurs have been quite a bit larger, but it has the attachment here where we would pop this in so that we can have it more of a almost like a Raptor series style base. There we go. So now we have that on there so that we can stand our Rex up on it. On top of that, you also have some different connections here that you can see, different ways to apply your T-Rex to the base, as well as alternating feet. Again, you have the feet that are kind of lifting up off of the ground. You have the feet with the toes, closer together, spread apart, all that fun stuff, so that you can switch out the feet for your Rex and pretty much give it any diorama, any visual you would like. Always very handy when coming up with some really cool poses. And then our Juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex itself, and wow, this thing is absolutely beautiful, and I really, really like the articulation on this one. I think I like the articulation on this one more than any of the releases so far, because the articulation of the neck is so much smoother. You can see we get really nice twists and turns and very, very smooth movement. Not saying that the others can't do that, but it's not quite to this extent. They don't articulate quite that far, which makes this one, as far as the head and neck articulation, really quite superior, if you ask me. I also like the articulated wire tail without the joints, even though I don't mind the joints by any means, but the fact that we have the tail being more of like a wire tail the entire way through looks just a little bit nicer, I think, to me. Of course, being a smaller species like this, you can pull that off a lot nicer and a lot easier when it comes to this style figure, but it looks absolutely gorgeous, so let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Juvenile Tyrannosaurus, we've got lots of really nice looking skin texture throughout, all kinds of really vibrant detailing as a whole. We can also see some very nice paintwork as the paintwork is applied, where we have, again, washes and dry brushing and all that sort of thing to really highlight the detail. Very nice. You can see that we have this nice darker brown running from the upper part of the head, kind of leaking down into the face. Then we have a nice lighter tone. We also have an alternate lighter tone here for the lower jaw, and then some of this kind of like reddish brown that we have pretty much abundant through a large majority of the body of the figure, something you also see on the adult Rex. But again, you can see, if we get nice and close, that the paintwork has been applied in really nice naturalistic ways where the transitions are smooth, and especially in this brownish area, you can really make out how nice of a job they've done of highlighting the detail, because they have this, like, it's either an orangish wash or Maybe they had the orange there initially and then kind of dry brushed over it, but one way or another, you can see how the orange kind of creeps through all of the scales in the absolute most brilliant way possible, just amping up the realism of the paint job and also just adding in some color variation and depth to the paint job as a whole. You can also see we have a lighter tone up here on the top for those little crests up above the head. We have the nostrils sculpted out quite nicely. The eyes as well are sculpted very nicely, as is the detail there around the eyes. Nice bluish eye with a black pupil. Same coloration I think that we had actually seen on the Tyrannosaurus. There's also a nice gloss coat there on the eye. It shines really nicely, very realistically. Of course, we have an articulated jaw for the figure. One of the most exciting aspects of a Beasts of the Mesozoic release is all the articulation. You can see that the inside of the mouth is sculpted really nicely. The teeth aren't sculpted individually. They're all sculpted together, but they do look really good, and they're also really nicely painted. You can see very precise paintwork, as you always find on a Beasts of the Mesozoic release. Same deal here for the teeth on the lower jaw, and you can see we have a nice light tone of color there for the inside of the mouth. Nice gloss coat as well. The detailing looks great everywhere. The lower jaw kind of gets in the way a little bit when I try to get a good view of the inside of the mouth on the upper side, but the jaw also works beautifully. You can see it closes very nicely, and since our Tyrannosaurus has lips, you can get those teeth to entirely disappear once you close the mouth. Yes, we do have an articulated tongue as well, something I was just curious on. And then as you begin to move back here, you can see the ear. You can also see kind of like some creasing and stuff in the skin. More extremely nice paintwork. We have some more of that light tone kind of spotting right there. As you move down here to the underside of the jaw and throat, you can see all kinds of skin wrinkles and skin creases. You can see the throat itself here running down the course of the somewhat elongated neck of our juvenile T-Rex. You've also got more again of that nice mixture of an orange and brown moving down the course of the back of the neck, but you can also see that we have more of that light tone as well as a black kind of surrounding it, and then more of the reddish or orangish brown here on the side of the neck. You can also see some hints of yellows kind of picking up there, highlighting the scale detail quite nicely. And again, we have that really nice articulation. You've got a spot right here at the top of the neck and then a spot down here at the bottom of the neck. And that allows you to, again, really deliver some nice poses for the Rex. Again, you can go left, right. You can also go up and down very nicely. And another thing that I actually like about this is the fact that these parts are on a swivel. So if you have the head turned, you can kind of give it that slight head tilt with a curious look, like he's just, oh, I don't know what that is. I don't know what's going on. So you can create some really cool poses overall when it comes to the articulation of this particular figure. Moving down into the body a little bit further, you see more of that kind of white or off-white leading up here. You can also make out the shoulder blade there, and just generally looking at this area, look how gorgeous the actual application of the paint is. It looks phenomenal. We also have the spinal column here moving along the top of the dinosaur. The scale detail is all exceptionally vibrant throughout the course of the sculpt. We have some more skin creases back here behind the arm. As you lead down, you can see that the coloration of the arm darkens a little bit as you lead down. Nice muscle definition displayed. We also have more articulation right here at the shoulder area. You can even leave the arm, kind of lead it out away from the body. You've also got elbow articulation and wrist articulation, so quite a bit going on there. And all of these joints can usually swivel. Yeah, absolutely can swivel, so you should probably keep them, like this, so you don't have pronated wrists, but you can swivel them if you choose to. As you lead down here into the lower part of the stomach, you have more nice skin wrinkles, skin creases, all sorts of detailing as far as that goes. You also have this kind of brownish tone that sort of stripes and designs down there. We have a nice lighter tone here for the midsection, but you can see we've dry brushed that detail out really nicely to make sure we highlight all of that scale detail as well. The creases run all the way up here in front of the thighs. You lead back, you can kind of make out the hip bone. You continue to see the spinal column there running along the back as well. And you can also take notice of the fact that the darker tone kind of runs down here into the thigh and just designs down a little bit as we lead into that kind of like an orangish or reddish brown. And then it kind of disappears a little bit but picks back up again near the knee. You can make out the muscle definition quite nicely. As we lead down here into the leg, the kneecap is present right there. Leading down a little further, again, the scale detail is just so nicely brought out when it comes to the washes and dry brushing techniques through the course of this entire figure. It just looks fantastic as far as that goes. We have a really nicely bulging calf muscle right here. Nice lighter tone again for the back of the leg. As we move down, we see some scoots picking up here in the front of the leg, running down here into the toes. Very nice, very bird-like foot sculpt. Nicely painted toenails as well with a light gray. They sport a very nice gloss coat, so they shine quite realistically. And you can see that we have a lighter tone for the toes, but but a darker tone there that runs along the scoots and everything in the front of the feet. Very, very nice, very precise paintwork. We also have painted dew claws. And then as we lead back up here, you've got a few more skin wrinkles here as we lead out into the tail. You can see we only have one seam here as far as the articulation goes moving out into the tail, which of course you can move all over the place, but the tail itself is a wire tail, so you can articulate it however you choose to. But you have a nice kind of striping effect as you lead out the length of the tail. Really nice sculpting and detailing as well once you move out through the course of the tail. And we also have midsection articulation, something I didn't point out just a moment ago when we were in this area. You can move it all around a little bit there, and you can also see that we have hip articulation as well as knee articulation, which is a little bit stiff currently. Articulation right here, and then articulation down here as well. Of course, all these areas can swivel and spin wherever you want them to create all kinds of really cool, again, diorama possibilities. And then as we run here along the underside, you can see we continue to have that nice light tone for the underside when the feet don't get in the way. We see that striping lead down here into the stomach region as well. And you can see all of that really nice paintwork lead up through the entire underside of the Rex. The opposite side, of course, is going to look pretty much the same. No real big differences, especially since it is an articulated figure, and it's up to us to sort of articulate it and display it how we want. But it looks absolutely incredible, honestly, on both sides when it comes to both the sculpt and paint. In my opinion, just perfectly replicating a juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex. And then we've also got a base here, and you can see we have almost like a rocky sort of area, but it also at the same time kind of looks a little bit like a sandy sort of an area. And you kind of make out like footprints and stuff here in the sandy areas, so it looks like it's definitely a little bit more mushy than it would be if it were a, rock formation. So a little bit more of just like an earthy area or a sandy area. You can see that we've got some vegetation here on the outer edge. Extremely nice, very realistic paintwork as well. You can see like a brownish wash that's been applied. The actual texturing and everything looks phenomenal. Extremely crisp, extremely vibrant detail on the base as well. And again, it all looks really nice. We have this little rod here in the center, so you can kind of maneuver that around as well to reposition it so that you can get your Rex on the base exactly how you want it. So we're going to go ahead, throw it on the base, and check it out from there. And as I said, you would want to use this to position your Rex, but you actually do have holes on the undersides of the feet, and there are pegs on the base. You can see one peg over here, one peg over here, so you can kind of position the Rex basically any way you would like. And honestly, without even using that, you can see that the Rex actually stands very nicely with the pegs themselves. So I think the inclusion of this potentially could just be an extra. If you don't even want to use it, you technically don't have to, because it actually stands quite nicely even without the use of that little, peg right there. But what I'm also wondering is, can the Rex stand entirely independently on its own without the base? Which I kind of feel like it can, because even though the joints articulate nicely, they're not like super loose, kind of like we had on the Raptors. I feel like they're a little bit more stable. So if we get it in a good natural position, there we go. We absolutely can see that the juvenile Tyrannosaurus can stand on its own entirely without the use of the base or anything like that. So plenty of options as far as displaying it goes, pretty much any option you could choose. As far as a size goes, though, we're going to have to move it up just a little bit to kind of get it into screen. For a length, you are looking at about 12 3/4 inches, or right around 32, maybe about 32.5 centimeters. And the highest point currently would be the head, but the head's kind of slouched a little bit. About 4.5 inches, or around 11.5 centimeters. But of course, you could position the Rex up much higher if you choose to. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our juvenile beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaurus Rex. And you can see, even being a juvenile at 1/18th scale, it still sports a pretty darn good size overall. And, standing next to Mr. Papo Rex, who is a decently sized figure himself, you can definitely take notice to that. We've also got the beasts of the Mesozoic Zuniceratops here next to our juvenile T-Rex, giving you another idea here as far as a size comparison with a beasts of the Mesozoic release. We had to move them back a little bit further, but we also have the subadult Triceratops next to the juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex here, a comparison that I felt like some people would probably want to see to kind of get an idea as far as how these two size up next to each other. But for another comparison, we've got ourselves a Mattel Velociraptor and a Mattel Dilophosaurus next to the Juvenile Rex, two very popular figures I'm sure many people have, so another one that I felt like would be a pretty decent comparison piece. Then we've got a few more randoms, as we have the Safari LTD Tyrannus, the Schleich Diabloceratops, and the Collect A Deluxe Dimetrodon here next to the Juvenile Rex. Again, ironing out this size, but for another comparison, here is the recently reviewed Tyrannus from the Beasts of the Mesozoic line here next to the Juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex. Again, giving us an idea as far as how these two size up next to each other, especially both of them being 1/18 scale. It is pretty cool to see them, size up to each other the way they would in real life. But for another comparison, when it comes to articulated dinosaur figures, here's a pretty fun one, as we have the Hammond Collection Ceratosaurus there, kind of hiding back behind the Juvenile Tyrannosaurus, hopefully giving you an idea of the size. And again, if we kind of move them out, kind of put them right next to each other, you can definitely see again how they size up next to each other. Obviously, the Ceratosaurus is a bit larger, but the Juvenile Rex actually might win this round as far as length goes. And then for the comparison, most people probably want to see, we have the Juvenile Rex here with the Adult Rex, and you can see they look absolutely incredible next to each other. Definitely one amazing diorama here with these. I could just imagine some numerous Juvenile Tyrannosaurs here next to one of the adults. That would look extremely, extremely cool. But man, they look just beautiful here, displayed next to each other. Such an incredible visual, and just perfectly executed here by David Silva and the Beasts of the Mesozoic. And then for one final comparison, since I don't really have very many Juvenile Tyrannosaurs in my collection, here is a comparison next to the 1/35th scale Beasts of the Mesozoic Tyrannosaurus Rex. And you can see that the juvenile and the adult version of the 1/35th scale, the juvenile is in 1/18th scale. They're pretty similar in size overall as far as like height and length and stuff. Obviously, the adult wins it when it comes to body mass, but not too far off overall as far as the size goes. So if you do have the 1/35th scale Rex, you should have a pretty good idea of the size of the juvenile 1/18th. So this brand new Beasts of the Mesozoic 1/18th scale juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex is just about as drop dead gorgeous as it gets. The sculpt is phenomenal, extremely accurate as far as what a juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex would look like. I think David hit the nail right on the head as far as the overall appearance goes, and on top of that, they have some extremely, really vibrant detail. On top of that, they have some extremely nice, really vibrant detail throughout. I'm always impressed with just how good the actual quality of the sculpts are on the Beasts of the Mesozoic. It includes every ounce of detail you would want to find, but nothing on it looks muted. It looks really vibrant, really crisp as a whole, and that's something that can be said for every Beasts of the Mesozoic release I've ever seen, but of course, it continues here with the Tyrannosaur series. The paint job is also really nice as well. Of course, it somewhat resembles the adult, but in a juvenile sort of a way where you can see how it's kind of like transitioning into the adult colors. I like that as well. It would have been a little bit of a bummer if it had just replicated the adult paint job perfectly exactly the same way, because we would imagine that the coloration would be a little bit different considering the dinosaur's quite a bit younger, and they have completely captured that overall appearance to it. Again, the tones of color, everything looked great on this and look exactly as they probably would as it's transitioning into the coloration of the adult. All of the actual paint application as well is super nicely applied, really smooth transitions, nice naturalistic application of the paint. I love the use of the washes and the dry brushing techniques. The kind of like orangish tones running down through the darker brown areas of the body just looks so good on this. And as a whole, the paint job is probably one of the most impressive that I think I've seen on any Beasts of the Mesozoic release so far. We also have a nice base, nice small base, again, that works perfectly for the Rex. And on top of that, I love the fact that we have different ways to apply it. We can use that kind of peg like we had for the Raptors to hold it up in the midsection, but you also have pegs on the base itself to apply to the feet of the Tyrannosaur, so you don't have to use that kind of clear peg for it, or you can actually just stand the model up entirely on its own, because it does stand quite nicely even without the help of the base, the pegs. None of that stuff is necessarily needed to display your juvenile Rex. I'm also a big fan of the articulation of this one, even more so than the adult versions, because we have a lot smoother articulation in the neck overall, and it works really, really well. So that is also a massive plus for this figure. So as a whole, this is an incredible release from the Beasts of the Mesozoic, and one that I highly, highly recommend picking up. So I will include a link in the description to where you can do that on the Backerkit for the Beasts of the Mesozoic. Again, if you are interested in getting it for a little bit of a cheaper price, because it's a little bit cheaper during the pre-orders, make sure you head on over to that right now. I will include a link in the description to where you can get that pre-order in, snag yourself this Juvenile Rex, and they will be shipping very, very soon, so make sure you do that before they begin shipping. And I want to give one huge shout out to David Silva for sending this one over a little bit early to me to take a look at with you guys, kind of hype up the release for it, and add to my collection a little bit early. So thank you so much, David. Make sure you guys pick up this amazing Tyrannosaurus, and make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.